My name is Craig Mertens. I'm the general manager of GraphicsFlow. Welcome to our class today. We are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is successful selling. And I have been extremely blessed in my life to be around some very, very successful salespeople, men and women, in the course of my career. And I've been privileged to be able to absorb a lot of the information and techniques and things that I've learned from these brilliant and accomplished salespeople. And we're going to share some of that with you today. I want to kind of start out a little bit with a bio, just to kind of tell you where I come from and kind of my credentials to speak on this topic in the sphere of decorated apparel. I grew up in this industry, so when I was 5 years old, my dad, had a little side hustle business with the heat press, and we were heat pressing transfers on T-shirts in the basement of our home in Fargo, North Dakota. My dad was a rep for a company called Champion Products, who many of you know today. During those days, they were the company for uniforms. So if you're doing high school or collegiate or even professional sports uniforms, Champion was the top brand at that time and was also a very big deal in the college bookstore and collegiate market. So my dad was a rep for Champion doing primarily uniforms. We got moved out to Arizona in 1977. The day we moved, it was 22 below in Fargo, North Dakota. So it was a pretty good upgrade in the weather from Fargo to Arizona. I thought Arizona was going to be like Saudi Arabia sand dunes. I was a little shocked when we got here. But my dad was a rep for Champion, and one of the challenges that he had back in those days was they were processing such a significant amount of artwork when they would do their orders that orders would oftentimes get really backed up. And a result of that, Champion would oftentimes miss the mark on deliveries, which was very frustrating for my dad. And so one of the things that he started doing is we started a set of retail stores called, at the time it was called the U Shop, and we had a store in Phoenix and we also had a store in Tucson, and we were doing spirit wear. And one of the things that we were uniquely good at, and my mom did all the buying, and my dad was working for Champion. We got a license for the University of Arizona and Arizona State, and we started printing some of our own gear. My dad hired some artists, some people that he knew. Some of these folks were fairly famous in the t-shirt world at the time, and hired some artists to create these wonderful graphics for Arizona State and the University of Arizona. And we started putting this merch into our retail stores, and it was selling really, really well, like better than even some of the name brand things. And at that early age, I learned that if you have better graphics, your products will sell. And that was just ingrained into me from the earliest part of my development, even prior to really being a salesperson. And so I worked with my parents. I manned my mom's retail store every Saturday for 4 years of high school, and during the week I actually worked on the swing shift at the wholesale business all throughout high school. And so I basically grew up in this business. My dad left Champion, started a wholesale screen printing business called Desert Sportswear. When I was 15 years old, I was going in and making presentations to the school groups at my high school, track group, intramurals, my cross country friends. We had a really pretty amazing art department. And so we could go in and pretty much just knock people's socks off with all these cool graphics that we were doing for, UCLA bookstore or Arizona State or University of Texas or, Florida. So we were doing collegiate sports. We're all across the U.S. to college bookstores. And again, the big challenge was artwork. We would come out with new artwork basically 4 times a year, and that's what our salespeople would utilize in order to make their calls. And I actually want to take just a quick little trip down memory lane, and then I want to show you why this applies to you guys today. Okay, so sit with me for a second. So we're going to go in to the deep archive, and we're going to look at the catalog for Desert Sportswear. That this was probably around circa 1982, I'm thinking. So this is our catalog in 1982. And notice right here, these are designs. They were built by artists in our art department. We would come out with a series of designs 4 times a year. We'd have a spring line, we'd have a back to school line, we would have a college football bowl season line, and then we would have typically like a summer line as well. And each one of these lines would have different graphical themes that were tailored to that time of the year. And of course, college football graphics were around bowls was a very big thing that we did, but that was a specialty thing that not everybody was purchasing those graphics. But we would come out with the graphics for the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, way ahead of the events getting the bids going out to select the team, so that our buyers would be engaged in making pre-booking orders prior to the teams even being decided. So that was a big part of what we did. So engaging clients in this concept of graphics was the central component on how we built our business. And during in that area back in the mid 80s, nobody was really doing this. Computer generated graphics were just kind of getting going in the marketplace. And people weren't really doing this. And so I got out of school with a degree in education, um, basically burned through a sales territory in Arizona. We had, my dad was the primary rep, and then we had another rep that was quite successful, Rob. And then there was me just kind of picking up the scraps. And my dad basically called me in his office and says, "Hey, I love you, son, but there's no opportunity for growth here with you in Arizona." Now looking back at it, I wish he would have just fired Rob and hired me first. Saved me 8 years of my life moving to Colorado, which I love moving to Colorado. But we decided to move me and my new bride to Denver, Colorado, and I inherited two accounts when I went over there. I had a Walgreens store, or excuse me, a Woolworths store in downtown Denver, and I had Rams bookstore in Colorado State. Between those two stores, we were doing about $60,000 a year, so they're pretty decent accounts. That was it. I had to build a sales territory, and so what I'm going to teach you guys is kind of some of the techniques that I use to build a sales territory. And with the central component of how I built a sales territory, and it applies to this day, is I used graphics to engage my clients. If you lead with graphics, you know what? People aren't going to be as price sensitive, right? If all you're doing is selling a t-shirt and you say, "Hey, what do you sell?" "I sell t-shirts." "Well, what's your price?" "It's $6.50. I never got an opportunity to tell you why my t-shirt's better, because my graphics are better, and that's part of the service that I offer you. I've just basically reduced myself down to being a commodity. But if I get you hooked on the graphics first, and then we sit down and we talk about how the products are going to fit into what the theme of what you're trying to do, whether it's corporate or whether it's a school group or an event that's being planned. Getting you hooked on graphics is really the magic. And back in those days, what I had to do is we had these catalogs here. I had to go and physically drop these catalogs off at buyers with a little cover letter. I had to schlep around a sample rack that was custom made with off-road tires for Colorado, with 4 bags of probably 400, or excuse me, 200 samples at least that I would take into a client. And I would literally sit there with the client and we go through all these products and all the different graphics, and they'd pick out the graphics first, and then we'd try to figure out what we were going to build around them. And I didn't just do wearables too. I had a backpack line, I had a promotional products line, a really great headwear line, and that was always the case. And so we can do a lot of that same type of work today using technology. You'll see some of that in today's class, but that whole concept of leading with graphics is critically important. And here's part of the reason. One of the things that I learned early on was that you don't have to be the greatest salesperson in the world to be successful selling into the decorated apparel market. But if you have good products and things that people connect with visually, you can get away with a lot, even if you're not super accomplished. And it's my opinion, and this is just an opinion, is that the best salespeople in our sphere and our peers are not necessarily the most outgoing, most talented people. Sometimes they're just the people that hustle the best and that are really aggressive. And I can personally attest to myself. I was a pretty hyper competitive person in my youth, and it's pretty true to this day. I'm banned from all family board games. They don't let me play any board games in the family because apparently I'm obnoxious. And I just don't think high-fiving and spiking Monopoly boards is really uncalled for. I mean, I think that's normal, right? But it's kind of hyper competitive. Not everyone is hyper competitive. So if you have good looking products that people connect with, you're more likely to sell. And one of the most successful salesperson people I've ever worked with is a gentleman named John Gould. Worked with John for many, many years. He had a picture of himself in the art department that was a dartboard that the sales department would throw darts at his face. And here's why. There's a little UNLV shirt right here, I think, and there's probably another one back here. Yeah, that's the famous hoop and net design. When the University of Nevada, Las Vegas won the national championship basketball, John Gould cashed in for $1 million worth of merch. The reason is he had done all these custom graphics ahead of the event and gone in and sold all of the retail entities in Las Vegas, the off-campus bookstore, the on-campus bookstore, and he basically just loaded everybody up in merch because he had the art department go in and do all these graphics ahead of the sale. And so the reason the art department couldn't stand him was he was very demanding, and he was always having them do custom graphics, to the point where my dad was You just say, hey, listen, John, we have, if you don't produce this into an order, we're going to have to charge you for art time. And John was pretty responsible with that, but he built his whole business. So he mentored me, so I got to kind of see this whole thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't want a picture I don't want my picture in the art department, and I don't think they would do that considering their boss is my dad. But you know, being, learning that, taking a proactive stance with graphics and leading with graphics was the, the entree into successful decorated apparel business. And let me explain to you how this worked on kind of a micro level, and then I'll explain to you how this works on a macro level. Anytime you have a group or an entity that's looking to purchase merchandise, they usually generally have a theme, and a good example of that might be somebody's going to do a fundraiser for like a cancer walk or something of that nature. They have a theme to their walk. They know the location. It's cancer, so they're going to probably want a ribbon. They might have a color scheme, and so you know what they have to have. So something that has to happen. Somebody has to come up with those ideas. And so normally what would happen is the customer would, they'd get together and they'd have a meeting with their board of directors, and they may go online and they might look at some things and they come up with these ideas, and they come to you and they're like, hey, can you do this? And then guess what? You end up jumping through hoops trying to come up with an idea for them. Goes through various stages of revisions. They might kick it back. They might accept it. You might do the work. I've had this happen to me in my sales career in decorated apparel, where I've done all the work on the graphics, and guess what? Nothing ever came of it. That's, you got left holding the bag, right? But it's also true on the level of, it's also true on the level of a booster club or a sports group. I mean, even in corporate world now, because think of this, the trend in corporate America for wearables is not doing just your logo. The trend in corporate America is actually doing lifestyle graphics that look cool, that have your company name in them, and maybe the date you were established, and maybe some iconry of the industry that you're in. I'm wearing a shirt here today. This has got a weathered effect and a splattered thing, and it's got our logo worked into it. I like wearing this shirt. I get compliments on this shirt. A little pocket design with GraphicsFlow on it. I'm not too excited about that. So your programs will sell better when you have better graphics, whether it's a booster club or whether it's a corporate program that you're putting together. So having that graphics capability is really critical, and some companies have really sophisticated graphics capabilities. So on a small level, kind of a micro level, it's important, but let me tell you how it works on a macro level with big customers. Okay, I had a program when I moved to Colorado. I started off with two customers. I was very frustrated. I was very aggravated. I couldn't get appointments with these college bookstores and retail entities. They already had vendors they were working with. They weren't looking for a new vendor. And some of these vendors are very entrenched, and you guys all deal with that in your worlds. You have accounts that they are very entrenched with specific vendors, and it's very easy to get discouraged. So I got phenomenally discouraged by, I think it was my first 3 weeks in Colorado. I'd moved my new bride, my two cats, Bartles and James, up to Boulder, Colorado, and we had a little apartment, and I couldn't even get anybody on the phone to really talk to me. And so I called my dad, and I was really down. And some of you have heard this story before, and I just told my dad, hey man, I just don't think I can do this. I feel like I'm a failure. And my dad just said, I'll never forget it. He said, Craig, how many calls did you make? And I go, Dad, I've been on the phone, like I've been calling these people for 3 weeks again. I was like, how many sales calls did you make? Like physical sales calls? And I was like, well, not really any yet. I mean, I went and visited the Woolworth store in downtown Denver, and that was good. But he says, well, you got to go out and make some sales calls. He says, these folks are, if you call them on the phone, they're just going to blow you off. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take some of our great graphics from all these different school entities. I already had samples, and we're going to localize these graphics from the schools in your area. So we did graphics in our art department. We printed them out on our Canon, $20,000 Canon printer. We did graphics for University of Denver and Colorado State and Air Force Academy and University of Wyoming and CU for all the major schools. And I would go in with this catalog, printouts of those graphics slipped into the catalog with a little cover letter and a t-shirt, physical t-shirt that was printed. We had this wonderful t-shirt that we cut and sewed, and it was a heavyweight 100% cotton t-shirt. It was a brilliant t-shirt. I still own a couple of them. They're wonderful. And I drop off this wonderful t-shirt, had a printed graphic on it, my little catalog. And all of a sudden, when I'd call these people back to get appointments, they'd give me an appointment. And then I'd go rolling in there with my rolling rack, and I try to get my foot in the door with something that was novel that they couldn't get from anybody else. And then once I got my foot in the door, then I would start getting in there and selling the basics, the things that sell really well in a college bookstore setting. A lot of times are simple, ARC with the word Colorado on it. But it was graphics that got me in the door. And what I learned is, when you're behaving in a way that's successful, that reinforces that behavior, and you want to do it again. So I learned this little success template, and I just repeated it over and over again. And I caught a couple lucky breaks. One of the lucky breaks that I caught was that there was the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, which is probably the biggest account in the state. They do millions and millions of dollars worth of merch. They got a new buyer, and the new buyer came from a retail environment. And so she was a department store buyer, and I knew how that. I've been dealing with apartment stores quite a bit, so I kind of knew how they were wired. They really like to be involved and engaged in choosing graphics. And so I met with that buyer. We did a whole bunch of our cool collegiate graphics in uh, it'd be interesting to go on their website. I bet you some of those graphics are probably still selling today. I almost guarantee you they are. And we did all these cool collegiate graphics, and I went and made a presentation, and they loved it. And she placed a giant a test order with me, and that became a $750,000 a year account. And they ended up doing their first ever mail order catalog. I mean, the orders would come in on the fax machine. It'd be 10 or 15 feet of orders that would come in on the fax machine. I had to replace the paper, but I did that with graphics. That's how I did it. So when you're trying to reach people, back in those days, I had to do it with a sample bag. Now, I don't have to do that anymore. You guys can do that using technology. So a couple things you can do: social media. If you have an active Facebook or Instagram account, and you can direct your client to that account and get people, following you and liking you, guess what? You can use that as a showcase. Let me show you a good example of that. So you can see what I consider to be one of my favorite showcases. One of our clients, you've seen Jill Clark's Instagram account if you've been on my webcast, but she's always posting new things. And she has 16,300 followers on Instagram, and she does zero marketing. And maybe something's changed, but normally this time of year, she's cutting off orders. She's not even able to do new orders. And so when she comes out with a new product, she'll record a little unveiling video, and usually a lot of times I'll have music. I've got this one muted. And just, this is her showcase. She's able to see people, and you can definitely see by looking at this isn't her website, this is her Instagram page. She hashtags everything. She always copies in the vendor, Midwest Royals. This is her advertising. And so imagine when she's talking to somebody on the phone, or she's talking to a prospective new client, you can guarantee you she's directing them to, hey, just go and check out my Instagram. What a portfolio, what an absolute showcase of work. Amazing. Other customers of ours, they showcase their work by creating galleries on their website. I'll show you one of my favorite ones. This is XL Sportswear, and they're also an Inksoft client. And if you go to XL Sportswear and you click on Design Gallery, just hold on to your horses here, and you're going to see the level of work that these guys are doing. And so I was actually yesterday, I actually talked to their GM yesterday, having a really great conversation with their GM yesterday, and I was contemplating them. They have 16 full-time designers on their staff. And I was complimenting them on the level of his work. And one of the things that he said to me, he said, these are all one-offs, Craig. He says, we have high minimum order quantities. Some of these designs are 5 hours to as many as 15 or 20 hours worth of illustration time. So we can't do this level of work. And incidentally, they use CorelDRAW. Says we can't do this level of work for everybody. We're trying to find a way to do some of that lower level work, 1 and 2 and 3 color, spot color, screen print work. We have a DTG printer. We're trying to find a way to do that. And that's kind of where we come in. But what an incredible tool as a salesperson. If you're a salesperson and you're cold calling somebody on the phone or sending out emails, and you can link to this and say, hey, this is the level of our work. Whoa, what a huge advantage that you have. So that's utilizing technology to showcase your work. Again, people don't buy t-shirts, they buy the graphic. The t-shirt is simply the medium, and it's true for all wearables. If you have better looking graphics and they're more relevant to what's fashionable in the marketplace, you're more likely to attract clients so that you can sell them. And when you do sell them, their products move and they reorder. The reason that the U.S. Olympic Training Center became such a big account is number one, their product sold really well in their mail order catalog. And number two, they sold well in the store, so they were always reordering. If I'd put stinker graphics in there, which is what the buyer inherited. When the buyer came in, when Sandy first started there, let me tell you, they had stinker graphics in there. And the first thing she did, she's a retail buyer. She was like, sell this stuff out half price, get it out of my face. Let's just blow it all out half price and start over and reboot. And so I was always very, very careful when I'd work with her to make sure whatever we put into her stores was gonna do well. That was proven graphics that we'd done at other levels with other like school entities, primarily like college bookstores, and that stuff that was working. And she had some unusual taste, so once in a while, she'd pick something out, and I was like, yeah, Sandy, not, we've tried that other places, it doesn't really work. But I give her some flexibility. But this collaboration, you guys see what's happened. This built a relationship, and this collaboration between the two of us is what cemented the relationship. And so why is this important? How does artwork, kind of factor into your value proposition, right? How does it factor into your value proposition? Number one, it's a component of service. You're servicing the client by coming up with great ideas for them to put on their merch, right? Number two, it's a component of quality, because the better graphics company like this, they can charge a premium. They charge huge premium for these types of shirts because of the level of the artwork and the graphics on them. So it comes into quality. Where does it come into price? You can charge more when you have better graphics. If you're just doing a one color pocket print on a navy blue t-shirt for a fire department, yeah, that's their uniform. That's a commodity. They want to get that as cheap as they can. But if you do something like this, they know they can't get this anywhere. This is their fire truck. They draw your fire truck for you. That's why these are all one-offs, right? And wow, like you come in here and you go into like their trucking section, that's even crazier. Like you go into their trucking designs, whoa, they'll draw your big rig for you. But again, their minimum order quantity is 100 pieces, and these shirts are not cheap. Okay, so establishing value for your product is so critically important. So one of the things that I always recommend when you're kind of looking, people aren't great at evaluating results, right? So results speak for themselves. If your sales are good and you got more business than you know what to do with, you're probably either in the right place at the right time, or you're doing some things right. On the other hand, if the converse of that is, if the sales aren't good and you don't have business and you're just waiting around for orders to come in and they're not coming in, then you're probably doing something wrong. And so the first thing you have to do is kind of, if you're taking a critical look at yourself, is saying, what am I doing that's working versus what am I doing that isn't working? So is just getting on the phone, cold calling people, is that working? I can tell you right now, it works for me every day. I do it all day long. I wouldn't have any customers if I didn't do it. I'll get people to return my emails once in a while, but most of my sales for my product come from just getting on the phone, hustling up deals, trying to convince people to get a demo, because I know if I get you in a demo, you're going to be impressed with what we do, and you become a customer, right? So here's the thing, not everybody's going to be comfortable doing that. Some people use electronic forms of communication. A good portion of the leads that we get come in via email. If you spend any time on our website and you are in our CRM, I will get a notification of a lead score that says, hey, this person hit these 4 pages. They have a cumulative lead score of 7. You get points for different activities. Like you sign up for a webcast, you get so many points. You hit our website so many times, you fill out a form, and that pops into me as a lead. I call the client. I said, hey, I leave you don't hardly ever get people live on the phone. If I do, that's great. But I leave an impassioned message. I don't just call them and say, hey, this is Craig from GraphicsFlow. I'll call them up and say, hey, this is Craig from GraphicsFlow. Hey, I just want to introduce myself. I just want to let you know, GraphicsFlow is just taking the industry by storm. I know that's a bold statement, seems a little braggy, but it's really true. I'd love to have the opportunity to showcase our technology, show you what we do. We just came up with this amazing new technology called Art Portal. It's going to allow you to compete with the biggest companies in our industry. Love to book you for a demo. Go ahead and look for your email. You're going to have email with great videos in there, and my meeting link is in there. Go ahead and book me for a meeting. I'd love to show you what we do. I mean, that's a lot to put in a voicemail. I get a lot of people that book me for meetings, and that's because of that impassioned, plea. I'm taking my shot, man. I get you on your voicemail. I'm going to burn up your entire voicemail. And some people might hear that and they're going to be annoyed by it. But I got to tell you, I am booked. I'm booked all week, all day long. I am booked. I've been booked solid. Today is the first day I have not been booked solid for the last 4 months. So that technique there of a well-crafted email, some video, and some descriptors, and then a voicemail. And if you just happen to catch somebody on the phone, getting in a nice conversation with them, get to know them a little bit, that's a great method to do it. So taking a look at how you're doing things, whether you're using technology, whether you're old schooling it with brute force on a phone campaign when not everybody's gonna be comfortable doing that, but electronic forms of communication such as email, you all need to have some kind of bulk emailing technology. Could be something as simple as MailChimp. You can get a MailChimp account for free. If you got less than 1,000 users, it's free. If you got a bigger database, it's different. But staying in contact with your customers with well-crafted, meaningful emails, not necessarily emails that are designed to sell you. Sometimes says, hey, by the way, this is a trend that's in the industry, kind of an email. Everybody has to do that. People get really lazy, and I call it BC, which is before COVID, and then we're living in DC, which is during COVID. Before COVID, you could get away with a lot. You could be lazy. You could just wait for customers to come to you. You could rely on word of mouth. There's a lot of people that did that, and it worked for them, and they'd stay busy. But you know what? I talk to 20, 25 customers a day, and you know what? That's a rarity these days, because consumer habits, you've heard me say this before if you've been on my webcast, consumer habits have shifted so much that so many people are making their decisions based on technology, looking at websites, buying online, purveying artwork before they talk to a vendor. So the days of sitting on your rear end and waiting for orders to come in, if you're able to do that, more power to you, but I just don't talk to a lot of clients that do that. You got to get out there and hustle a little bit. So taking an evaluation and saying what's working. Okay, calling people, emailing people, pushing people to our social media, networking within the community, chamber of commerce, those are things that are working for me. What's not working for me? Waiting around for the phone to ring. That's not working for me. And I'm sure all of you have been in a restaurant, good restaurant, sat down in that good restaurant, you had a lovely meal. There's barely anybody in there's barely anybody in the restaurant, and you're like, these guys aren't going to make it, man. They are not going to make it. You know why they're not going to make it? Because they have a lousy location and they don't market. So, what they say in the restaurant business, location is everything. So there are exceptions to that where people will really go out and market and drive traffic, but it's really hard to do that. As a professional in the decorated apparel and personalization industry, you control all of that. You can reach people. You don't have to wait for them to find you. You can reach people, but you know what you got to do in order to do that? You have to get off your rear end. I know, you got to hustle. Whoa, you got to get out and hustle. That's it. The days of waiting for orders, those are long gone. And the folks that embrace technology and are able to get ideas in front of their customers electronically, they do really, really well. It's not by accident that people go to Custom Ink and design shirts and screen capture them and send them to you. The people go to Custom Ink to do that because Custom Ink is a big company and they do a lot of search engine optimization. They spend a lot of money on advertising, and I don't think they ever intended to be the design engine for the universe. But I think somewhere in their calculus, they probably said, we're going to get 100 people designing a shirt on our website, and 100 people a minute, and only 2 of those people are going to order. But if we do that enough, we can become a $200 million a year company, and that's what they do. But they figured out very early on by engaging clients in graphics, which is they do. They built a whole business around it, and you guys can do exactly the same thing. So analyzing what you're doing that's working versus what you're doing that isn't working, and here's the scoop: do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And sometimes you just have to cut your losses. I hear this from customers all the time. Oh, I've got this website. I never get anything on my website, and nobody ever places an order on your website. Guess what? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your website. Unless you happen to be just the most amazing company. I'll show you an amazing company if you want to see an amazing company. If you happen to be an amazing company that has like a whole lifestyle brand built around your community. This is one of our newest clients, Hole in the Roof. And you go to their website, they have a whole merch line that's built around Waco, Texas. So they have this whole merch line, this Waco, Texas merch, and they do sell things through their website because they have this merch line. But they use this as a showcase to show what their capabilities are to premier customers, and they deal at pretty high level type people. They do work for Magnolia, which is Chip and Joanna Gaines' company. So not everybody's going to be doing work at that level. So if you're disappointed in your website and not generating any revenue, guess what? Welcome to the club, because unless you're doing big search engine optimization and you're well known within the community, you're probably not going to get a lot of traction. How do you change that? You better get listed in Google. And I do this with customers all the time. I will get their company name, and it's kind of mean, but I do it anyways. And I'll get your company name, and I'll type in your name of your community. So let's go in here. Let's pick a community. All right, somebody in the notes, give me a name of a small rural community that you live in, and I'm going to do this, and we'll play this out, and we'll see how this stacks up. So write in the questions. You can put that in the questions. I'll see that. I'll enter that. So, all right, we're going to do it. Hiawassee. So Hiawassee embroidery, because I know, Jane, you do embroidery. And you go in there, and here we go. You showed right up, didn't you? Look at you. That's you right there, isn't it? Okay. All right. So she got list, no reviews, but she got listed right away because she's listed in Google Maps. So she went in at some point, she listed herself in Google Maps. So they have reviews yet. These people are coming up. I don't know if they're actually in Hiawassee or not. These guys come up because they actually have a website. So are they the same people? Let's see. Are they the same folks? Threads Inc. Yeah, that's the same guys over here. So you notice this is called, if you can score on an organic search, boom, look what these guys are doing right. Facebook. They got a decent following on Facebook. They have, oh, look at you. You got a little alignable sign set there. So these guys are alignable. They're listed in the yellow pages. They're with the Chamber of Commerce. So they have somebody that's pretty savvy, that's running their deal. But how do you get listed so you even show up, right? Here, this is what you do a Google. How to ready to get your business listed in Google Maps. Boom. So go through all these ad-based ones, and you go down here, and this is a really good article. I'm going to put this in the chat. This is a great article. I use this article all the time. So I'm going to put this in the chat so you guys can. It's not hard. You have to verify your business. You need to have some photography. You do have to verify your business. You'd want to get reviews. There are people who are going to give you great reviews, and then, unfortunately, some people are just mean, especially old employees, can be kind of mean. But this is a wonderful way to get people to find you. And if you talk to our social media gurus and our company and our chief marketing officer, they're going to tell you right now, get yourself listed in Google Maps. I've gone in and done this with clients, and nobody shows up in their hometown, but they show up in neighboring towns. What does that mean? If somebody typed in your hometown, they would have found you. Yeah, so having a Facebook page, having an Instagram page, getting listed in Yellow Pages, getting listed in Google Maps, that's a great way to prospect. It's a great way for people to find you organically. And guess what? Yeah, pay for that. That's free. Now also Yelp, but you can also get listed in Yelp. Bear in mind, Yelp's a controversial one because a lot of times you get listed in Yelp, all you need is one bad Yelp review. You see stuff in the restaurant business. We have a local guy here who has this pizza restaurant. It's wonderful, and it's a Bronx style pizza. I think it's Bronx style, and it's wonderful. But he had this terrible situation where this couple came into his store, and they had their toddler standing and running around on the table with shoes on, and then they needed to get some to-go stuff, and so he brought the pizza out, the to-go piece, just like a slice, and put it in foil. And the lady, she didn't like the foil. She wanted a box. He's like, hey, you're not getting a box. And besides that, your kid's been running around on my table. So she went and just torched this guy on Yelp. And I've never seen anything like it. This guy went in and went to war with her on Yelp. And so I had never eaten this restaurant. So my wife and I went in there because I just wanted to meet Anthony. I got to meet Anthony. So I want to introduce myself. I just got to tell you, you are a legend. What you did on Yelp, he's got tons of 5-star reviews. Don't do that. Don't be Anthony. you want to keep a pretty low profile on Yelp. And Yelp has a whole validation process for vetting, legitimate reviews versus bogus reviews. But I'm not a big Yelp guy for small businesses. I'm a big Google Maps guy. But some people use Yelp. So again, things that work, do more of them. Things that don't work, do less of them. Okay. So, when you're approaching a prospective, group of clients, one of the things that I always recommend is, think big, man. Look in your community and create a list. Excel file, if you've got a CRM software, however you want to do it, create a list and saying, these are the people I'm working with. These are the people I think I could probably land. And then these are the people that I would love to be able to do business with these. Think big. Start at the guppies, the little ones, like the people within your church network that, have kids in, little league and the women that, are, involved in whatever charitable organization you might be involved in, or, a friend of yours that owns a local business. Those are the easier ones, right? And you should always be, I always kind of teach this, but you should always be prepared to give somebody your 1 minute little, you know, commercial for your business, what you do. People ask you what you do. Don't just say, hey, I'm my own embroidery equipment. Say, hey, listen, I have a decorated apparel business. We bring ideas into reality. We have full service customization. We'd love to be able to work with you. That kind of a thing. Um, so, when you're creating your prospecting list, don't limit it to people that you think you have a chance of selling. Put everybody, make a top 30 list, work your way down. But everyone has to have a prospecting list. And so when I started my sales territory in Colorado, I had a prospecting list. And that prospecting list required some research, and I didn't have the internet to lean on. So I knew every college bookstore, private and public, within the two-state area that I serviced, Colorado and Wyoming. I knew that because I had the directory from the Collegiate Bookstore Association. I had to go physically to the tourist areas in my state and physically go there and walk stores and introduce myself to figure out who the players were, the people that I'd want to be doing business with. I had to do that. And I put together my quote hit list, and I just went down. I got 2 customers I never landed. You ready? Everybody on my list, I had 400 customers by the time I left Colorado. I had 400 customers. There's 2 customers I didn't land. Okay. Customer number 1 was the Broadmoor. So the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs, I met with them. I used to get postcards from my sales manager saying, why aren't we going to do business with Broadmoor? And I could never get in there. And the other one was the Grand Teton Lodge Company in the park in Yellowstone and Grand Teton. I could never get in there. And that buyer, she was tough. And she just met with her, went up there a couple of times, trudged through there with my rolling rack, and they're super hard to get into their retail space. Never able, but got everybody else because I just hustled, man. And me, you knock me down, I get back up. So the one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I put it into my outline. So let's go see how we're doing on our outline here. One of the things that I absolutely wanted to talk about was, okay, we talked about how you stack up against the competition and refocusing your activities to more productive activities. But this one, get past your comfort level. So not everybody is wired to face rejection. I'm a human being. I'm sensitive. I was mercilessly bullied as a child. We moved around a lot. And when you're the new kid, you move into new schools, you better find some allies, because if you don't in a hurry, you're going to get bullied. And so, back in those days, the conventional wisdom was, you better fight back or you're going to continue to get bullied, which is what I did. And I got way too many fistfights for a kid. You can't do that today. And I don't want to get into the whole discussion of bullies because I have zero tolerance for them. But it did toughen me up. And so I learned from an early age that, my dad's big hero is Vince Lombardi, and Vince Lombardi has a dozen quotes on getting knocked down and getting yourself back up. So I learned early on in my business career to not take things personally. If I got rejected by one customer, you know what I would do? I'd find out who their competitor is. If school A blew me off, I'd find out who school B is, their rival, and I'd go talk to that person. If retail store, gift store A, wouldn't give me the time of day in Vail, Colorado, I would go and find, maybe it wasn't the top store, but I'd go find the 2 or 3 stores that would compete with them, and I'd set them up. And then, next time I'm talking to store A, the real big store, I'd be able to say, hey, I'm doing business with your competitors, right? So, not taking things personally, and what are you risking? And I know every person has a different tolerance for rejection. I get that, but what are you really risking? It's not personal, it's just somebody saying, hey, you know what? I'm good. I don't need to talk to you. Frankly, when I get people on the phone and I just don't really feel like I'm connecting with them, and I feel like they're really not digging what I'm pitching, I just move on. Hey, next. And I am vindictive, so I will go look up who your competitors are, and then I will call them. but, but what I'm trying to say is, don't take it personally, man. People just absolutely positively will be jerks to you in the marketplace. We've all been there. We've all probably had a situation we worked really hard to get an account, and we were doing all the legwork, and for whatever set of circumstances, the buyer changed, or somebody got fired, or just out of sight, out of mind, and it just didn't go anywhere. But you know what? If you didn't make the effort and activity, you've never closed any accounts. So you have to keep plugging away, and it is a numbers game. It absolutely is a numbers game. The more people that you approach and you reach, the more likely you're going to be able to sell them. Selling with competence. People don't like to work with wishy-washy people. If you have ever gone to buy a car, which is a horrible experience most of the time, you buy a car and you're talking to the salesperson and you get one of these wishy-washy, non-self-confident salespeople, you just start kind of feeling a little bit sorry for them, and you're like, you can't leave fast enough, man. I don't even want to come back to that place, because my sense of empathy kicks in and I start feeling bad for that person, and like, this guy's never gonna make it. And my sense of empathy kicks in, and I just want to skedaddle. I don't have anything to do with it. On the other hand, if I go in there and they're too aggressive, I don't want to do anything. So just being authentic and just being self-confident. If you're doing good work, you're doing good work. You don't have to apologize for it. And you want to, you don't want to be overwhelmingly strong, but you want to come across as self-confident, and that's something that you have to work on, right? And I think one of the easiest ways to do that, to become self-confident in terms of this business side of things, is being able to share success stories with people. When use the third-party success story, kind of like what I was doing with you, telling you about my sales career, and saying, hey, we did this with this person. This is the results it produced. This is why it was successful, and I can replicate the same thing with you. Wow, that's impressive, isn't it? And to be able to provide those case studies. So as your business evolves and you have more business and you grow, you'll have more of those success stories. And one of the greatest ways to showcase a success story is to show somebody like a web store that you built, or a successful sales campaign. Give them real numbers. Say, hey, this is what we did and this is what it produced. Here's the graphics. So you heard me talking about, engaging clients with graphics. It has not changed. It is the same game, but I'll show you how I do it today versus how I did it back in the schlepping around the rolling rack with off-road tires through the snow and mud and sleet, with 4 sample bags. It's funny how you remember that, right? And rolling into a client and sitting there for an hour going through bags and looking at graphics. I don't have to do that anymore. I can do that through a web showcase. We were talking a little bit about that. Here, I'll show you another really good web showcase from a client. This is a really good one. And we oftentimes, this is a good site for like inspiration. But if you go to, this is a really good site, Be Unlimited, um, and they showcase their work. They're very engaged in the Greek market. You guys should be able to see that. So they're very engaged in the Greek market. They're definitely one of the players, and all this artwork is really customized. But it's interesting. You can click on this, and they're licensed with all fraternities and sororities. And when you add that to the cart, you can put in order notes in there, and it's kind of, to me, it's a little bass backwards. You're putting order notes in there before you're preparing checkout. You got to get the artwork nailed down first before you can check out, in my opinion. This is kind of coming, as a little bit backwards. If you ask me, I'd like to get I would like to see the design first before I commit to anything. I'm not really ready to place the order, quite at this point. I'll show you another customer that takes a different approach to this. This is the Graphic Cow Company, another great website for inspiration. What they do, they have all these designs on their website, and you come in here on your website and you click on it, and you can add this and request all the changes in this, and you submit it to them. But you got to do these one design at a time. And I know these guys, and they've spent a significant amount of money over however many years producing the technology to do this. But this is really the key to their business, is this kind of artwork engagement. These guys really get it. Artwork engagement is what drives their sales. It's all, especially in the Greek market or all the different markets they're in, it's like an arms race of graphics. People want to have the coolest looking swag, right? So I'll show you how I would do that, a little bit different. And I'll go to one of my customers' websites. What I would do is I would do this. I would send them to my art portal and talk about leading with graphics. This is my client, Christina. And I think she was the first person to integrate the GraphicsFlow art portal into her website. I think she was like client number one that she did that. And so if you go to her website, you notice right here it says Design Studio. I'm just going to go back to her main navigation. So here's her main navigation. You can read all about who she is and what they do. And she'll be really excited that I showcased her in the website today. But you notice it says Design Studio. Boom. You're like, what's that? What's Design Studio? And you're like, hey, wait a minute. You've got all this artwork here, and wow, look at all this cool Christmas stuff that you got. Oh wow, you can do these for me. So maybe it was a Greek thing, and we want to do a fraternity sorority deal, or we just want to do a ugly Christmas sweater thing for work, and do ugly Christmas sweaters for people. Or maybe it was law enforcement, and we want to do some graphics for the fire department or whatever we're doing. The customer can just go in here and they can type in whatever they're looking for. They can go to a category, and then they can submit this. So we're leading with artwork is what we're doing. We're leading with artwork. We're trying to use artwork as a sales lead generator. Once the request comes into us, then what we're going to do is we're going to process that request, and we're going to engage the customer in a conversation. And it was interesting. I was on a conference call yesterday, and I'll go to my art portal. We'll actually process one of these. I was on a call with a very important partner of ours yesterday. Actually, it was a pretty high-powered meeting. Some of the kind of, I guess you would say, some of the giants in our industry were on that call, and I was privileged to be able to be a part of that. And the CEO, founder of one of these companies, a gentleman I have a tremendous amount of respect for, said, "So basically, your customers, what they're hunting for new customers." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "A lot of our customers just gonna sit back and just wait for things to come in." And I go, wow, I didn't even know that was an option. Our customers are always hunting for new customers. You have to have new client acquisition because of retention. People drop off. They drop out. They find other vendors. There's a buyer changeover, and the new buyer has another vendor, or they go out of business, or there's a pandemic. So hunting for clients is, for me, I just don't even think any different because I've been doing this for a long time. And so he was just fascinated by the concept of art portal because it's like the ultimate hunting for new client tool. And so if my customer, if I send them to my art portal, and this, instead of having an embed, this is my art portal, which is just a page, and we're using the tools in art portal to generate the HTML for this page. So here's my header. I chose the color, chose this copy, I chose the background color, I incorporated my logo, I put my link back to my website, got a little contact form here, and then there's a little video that explains how to use our portal. So if my client comes in here and they're doing a fire department design and they want to do design, all they got to do is just click over here to say, okay, let's do this fire department design, and can you change this to Oakdale with dark red, and reflex blue. Blue lettering. All right, okay, boom. So they just added that and they submitted it. So go over here and we'll do a little submission right here. I'm going to submit it to myself. And we are thinking Oxford gray crew neck sweatshirts. Okay, boom. So they're submitting this. And so I'm going to log into my GraphicsFlow account, which is our main technology. And it's an online app. So I'm going to log into my online app. I just got an email that said, hey, there's a new art request. Customer got a confirmation, said, hey, thanks for filling it out. We'll get right back to you. I go into my art request and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? Okay, well, actually, here's the real one right here. So Jenny submitted this. This is the design they wanted. Oh, that looks good. Can you change this to Oakville with red and blue? I created an art approval. I went in and downloaded the file and made a quick edit in CorelDRAW using our Smart Designer software. I could do the same thing in Adobe Illustrator. It only took me a minute. I converted it to an art approval, and then I just bounced it back to them. And then one thing that I might do on this one is change the background color. So you remember all that work I used to have to do with schlepping sample bags around? I don't have to do that anymore because I can use technology to do kind of the low level work. We're delegating the low level work to technology. We're letting, a piece of technology reach out to many, many more customers than I could ever in a million years do by virtue of, even making phone calls, even making, physical sales calls. I could not reach anywhere near as many people versus doing this. So, if you think about the way that clients normally interact with you on artwork, I'm going to go and pop a watermark in here actually. If you think about the way that clients interact with you on artwork, how does it normally work? Most of the time, the way people are doing it is they've gone to a custom make, they've gone to Etsy, they've gone to a Google search, they've gone to Pinterest page, they found something they're interested in, and then they come to you and they said, hey, can you do this? And you know what you end up doing? Jumping through hoops trying to recreate it before you've even had a chance to find out, what do you want to put this on? What are you, what's your budget? How many do you want to order? I never have the chance to really have that conversation with them because what I want to do with the end user, I want to get my hooks into them. And so if they're invested in the graphic first, hey, guess what? Then I have an opportunity to get in a conversation with them. And I had a customer call me today and ask me that question. What do you charge for doing this art? I said, I don't charge anything. If they're just taking one of my designs and all I have to do is just go in and name drop it real quick, it doesn't take any time to do that. I just go in and name drop it. Doesn't, I got no investment in time to do that. I download the file, swap the text, re-upload it. I said, that's a cost of me doing business. And the benefit that the customer gets is they're getting, um, they don't have to pay for art fees because I'm just taking a template and tweaking it out for them. If they want to get into something real custom, we can do that, right? But so this comes in and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, there's no, these guys take forever to pay, get a credit card. So this comes in, I look at it and go, hey, I don't have enough information to complete this. I need to know what they want to put it on. So I'm going to pop them a little email right here. I'm just going to use the email system. I'm going to pop them a little email and says, hey, Jenny, we got your art request. Could you give me some idea of like what your deadline is when you need it? What kind of garment you're thinking, your colors, and then I can put this together for you. All of a sudden, I've pre-qualified them. If they don't come back to me with that information, I'm not doing it for them. I am not doing an art request for them unless they respond to that email. If they respond to that email, now I know I have a legitimate qualified lead and I will mock it up for them. I know what shirt it's going to go on. I know when they need it, the minimums. So if I know the minimum order is going to be, they just want to do one, I can go at that point and says, hey, we don't do one-offs. Our minimum order is 12. If I see that it's, going to be, my production equipment is limited to, let's say, a vinyl cutter, and they picked up multicolor design, I'm going to say, hey, listen, if we're at, at 12 pieces, we're going to need to do this using a vinyl cutter, which means we need to limit to one color. So I want to put this together for you in one color. If you have a larger minimum order, then I can order transfers that are full color. I need to be at 20 units in order to do that. Or if it's a big order, said, hey, listen, probably the best way to do this is to screen print it, or we have a direct to garment printer. So what I want is that lead so I can have a discussion with them and have an opportunity to sell them. If I just do this passively, if they go to, when people go to custom ink, and they design something on custom ink, you know, what percentage of those people convert to customers? Pretty low percentage, okay? When people go through and they do interact with you this way through Art Portal, you have a much higher percentage of closing these people. It's fact. And we're seeing this being played out right now. So this is a pretty big advantage for our customers. And the best thing about it is this: you have provided your client with a resource to select designs that you own the copyrights to and you are licensed to reproduce. So you don't have to go in and kind of finagle your way through reconstructing some graphics. You can send them to your graphics. And if you want to give something really custom to them, you still can do that. But you don't have all the time, energy, and expense of going through the art development. And you've just made it super easy for your customers to purchase. So this is taking that whole concept of leading with graphics kind of to the next level, so to speak. And that's why I'm super excited about it. So let's kind of go back through here and let's go back to my outline. We've already kind of established that leading with graphics is generally, I think, a really, really good idea. Um, Selling from a position of strength, you know, you don't, customers will come at you, man. It just depends on like what part of the world you're living in. People will come at you and they'll come at you. They'll ask for better pricing. They'll ask for quicker turnaround time. You have customers that'll bully you into waiting to the last minute and forcing you to scramble to get the design done. I had a client that told me this, and this is a while back. I shared this on a previous webcast, and he goes, "I love rush orders." I was like, "What? Nobody likes rush orders, jumping through hoops." He goes, "I love them because you know what? They can't get it from anybody else, and so they got to go through me, so I can charge them a little bit more, and then I can condition them, and I can say, hey, listen, yeah, if we'd had a little bit more lead time, you know, next time you order, if you plan ahead a little bit, I can give you a little bit better deal. But I had to pay rush charges, got to air freight in your shirts and all that stuff. But he would rather have the opportunity to build a relationship with a rush order versus, you know, you guys have dealt with companies, I'm sure you have, and you might be one of those companies that says, nope, sorry, we don't do rush orders. We have a 2-week turnaround time. You know what? You know, I'm talking to my client that does all these rush orders. He goes, dude, it's a third of our business. I go, you gotta be kidding me. And he goes, yeah, nobody in town will touch it. This is how I've just dominated my competitors. I was like, oh man, that's genius. You heard it here first. So they have the production equipment to do rush orders. They have full digital print, DTG. They have a big embroidery capacity, so they're in a good situation to do that. But I thought that was very interesting. But you do have to sell from a position of strength. You know, customers will, and it depends on what part of the world you live in. Customers will ask you for anything. Here's the classic example, price sensitivity, right? We all have those customers. We all have them that really, they're just hyper focused on price. It's just wired into their being. They have to be able to justify spending the money. In order to justify spending the money, they have to be 100% convinced that they can't get it one penny cheaper from somebody else. And here's the thing, people like that, unfortunately, will look at an inferior quality product or inferior graphics, and they will convince themselves that it's an equivalent just because they have that confirmation bias that, hey, they basically want to play into their bias that, yeah, this is the best decision because it's the cheapest, right? So that's how they're wired, and that's okay because, quite honestly, those folks are really easy to deal with, in my opinion. They're super easy to deal with, and this is how I deal with you guys. And you got a couple. I'm looking at the list. I got a couple of you guys on the list right now, and if I did this to you, I apologize in advance for giving you my big secret. This is what I do. I just get real with you. I'm just going to get real with you. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to pick on anybody's name on there. Not gonna mention names, but you know who you are. And I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say, hey, listen, Bob, it's not Bob. I don't mind you asking. I don't mind you asking for a better deal. I'm a consumer. I ask for the better deal, and my figure, if I don't ask, then I don't know where the line is, and I have an obligation to make sure that I get the best possible deal and value I possibly can. And I am just like you, so I really don't mind you asking. But here's the thing: the way we work is we actually quote our best price up front. Now, there are some things that I can do to give you a better deal, but that's going to require economies of scale. So the order has to be at this level of number of units. I have some savings in terms of my printing costs, and I can also amortize shipping over a larger order, right? So if we're going to move up into this level, then yeah, I can give you some, I can give you a better deal. But at the quantities that you're ordering, and at this price level, that's the best I'm going to be able to do for you. And so I'm comfortable walking you right up to my tolerance line, but we're kind of at that line right now. I just can't take one step over because I have an obligation to make sure I'm still in business for a year from now. And you don't have to go into that much detail, but it's okay to just to say, hey, listen, I don't mind you asking, but our prices are fixed, and if you can order a larger quantities, then I can bring the price down. And a lot of times you'll see people will, if you set up your pricing structure, a lot of times you'll see people ordering larger quantities because of that, for that inducement. So dealing with people that are hyper price sensitive and just being upfront with them and straight with them, and instead of being defensive, don't ever get defensive with them. Don't do it. That just will not work for you. You will not win that war. You will be in the tug of war. That you will not be the victor in that, because they're just going to walk away. And sitting on your high horse and we don't discount, don't, you've got to be real with people, right? So just say, hey, don't mind you asking, but this is the best I can do. And if you can do this, then I can get the price down a little bit. And if you build a little bit of padding into your pricing, then if you get a deal and you just need a little bit of flex, you say, hey, listen, one of the things I can do is, if I can't give you necessarily a discount on this, but I've got these great closeouts that I bought on these baseball caps, and I'd be happy to do those for you at cost. And I could do 5,000 stitch embroidered baseball caps, $7. Well, we know the cap's $2, and we know the embroidery, so $7 is a great, that's a great price for a baseball cap, and you just made another $3 a cap. So there's other ways that you can do that, because you have to establish value for what you do, because you know what the thing is, every human being is wired a little bit different. And one of the challenges that we run into is, and this is such a hard and difficult thing to have to cope with in our business lives, is some people they're just not nice people. There's no other way to put it. You can call them whatever you want to call them, but they're just not nice people. And we don't get to choose who we do business with. We can discourage people from buying from us, but we don't have like a vetting process that says, this guy's cool, this guy's not cool. We just deal with people, right? And so you have to be in a position where you can adapt your behavior and your personality to the individual personalities of your customers, which means you got to be flexible. You have to be flexible. One of my favorite things in my career, and I know it sounds really warped, but I love dealing with difficult customers. I love it. It just gives me an opportunity to polish my interpersonal communication skills with people. It's an opportunity for growth. So I don't take it personally. I dealt with today, in the Hall of Fame history of our company, the most difficult customer we have ever had. We fired this individual years ago. If you're on the class, you know who you are. You're not, I checked. We fired this individual years ago. We begrudgingly let her become a client again. Oops, I leaked that out. And we just decided to take a pass today. And you know what? So be it. That's just how it is, and you do the best you can. You try to work with the client, you try to be constructive, you try to be positive, you try to solve problems. We're not here trying to take shots and accuse people of things, that we're just trying to solve problems. So like if you just get real with people and just be really honest with folks, people appreciate that. When you're talking to a client, they're grinding on you for a better price, hey, listen, you know what? I understand. I get it. I said, give us a shot. We have great service. We have great quality. We will deliver your product on time. You have my personal guarantee that we're going to do that for you. And if we do make a mistake, we're going to fix it. I said, give us an opportunity to earn your business. And people like that. They like being, leaving it, real like that. So I think that's super important. And one of the things I'm going to leave you guys with, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit in the course of the class, was backloading. That's one of my favorite things to do, is backloading. What does that mean? You've got the deal and it's in your pocket. You might have already collected the funds. Everything's ready to roll. So we're in a confident position. Orders going. We got the credit card. You always make the credit card or the payment handled first before you do this. And then you go back to the client and says, hey, by the way, I don't know if you ever thought of us as for embroidery, but we're a full service embroidery company. And we have this great deal on hats because I bought these closeouts. And I could put you into a dozen hats. Even better than that is you could actually sew up a cap in advance at times. Hey, I made one for you if you want one of these for your employees. It's kind of a dirty trick, but finding like products that you can add to your orders. So for instance, there's three ways to do this that are really good. Way number one is by style. So you're doing a hoodie with them. Why don't we have a coordinated t-shirt that goes along with it? We're going to print them anyways. So let's do the t-shirt and the hoodie. You got the cold weather, you got the warm weather, right? Boom. So you do it with style. That's the first way. Number two is you do it with production process. So you have the graphic you screen printed, you take the same graphic and you put it in, you convert it into embroidery and you do a ball cap or a polo shirt or whatever you're doing with it. So you do it by process. We're going to sell them both the screen printed design or the heat transfer design. We're going to sell them the embroidery product. Okay, so you do it with process. And the third way you do it is through complementary products that kind of just spin off themselves. So certain products just go nicely together. Hoodies go with tees, baseball caps go with polo shirts oftentimes. Drinkware, doing, things in that quote hydration category. So adding additional products to the mix is a really great way to get your business up, and that's salesmanship, right? Or salespersonship. um, you are using a skill set to get a slightly larger order from the client, and especially if you're doing e-stores. So if you're doing e-stores and you have a print on demand capability, guess what, man? It's just so easy to add another product. There's no risk for the customer. So it's just so easy to slip another product in there. Slip in a hydration flask. Slip in a bib. Slip in a complementary product into their e-store, and watch the business grow. And you know what? If it doesn't sell, move on. We'll just take it off our list. So backloading with complementary products is just really small. It drives me nuts. I see people that don't do that. It's like, oh, really? And we do that in our business too. Hey, do you have embroidery software? Oh, you're a GraphicsFlow owner. Hey, you know what? You need to check out drawings. We have this amazing embroidery technology. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So, in summary, it's this: you have to be intentional about how you approach the sales process. It can't be one of these things that you wing. You can read all the motivational books on the planet. You can read, all the great Zig Ziglar stuff out there and Tony Robbins and all that stuff, but you have to be able to apply it to your life, which means you have to be intentional about it, and you have to develop your sales process, your sales style, and how you communicate with your customers. And once you have that dialed in and you're comfortable with it, what you're going to do is you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to stay with that. You're going to adapt your craft. But the thing is, like I said before, some of the best salespeople I know in the industry that I've been around with around a long time aren't necessarily the most talented salespeople. They're the people that hustle. And the one great equalizer that can help you to be more successful in your sales process is having better looking products. If Katie Owen taught me that. Katie Owen worked for me for 22 years. She retired last May. And we were talking, she said this so many different times. We were talking about, her own business, which she has a personalization and embroidery business. And she said, Craig, people buy from me because my stuff looks cool. That's it. She says, I'm not a good salesperson. I always kind of differ with her on that. But she says, I'm not a good salesperson. I just have cool stuff. People would buy from me because my swag looked great and they wanted stuff that looked like the NHL players were wearing, and I could do that. And that's why they bought from me. And she's a very personable person and people like her, and she's very responsible and ship on time and all the things that you would kind of expect for a decorated apparel business. But she had great looking products. And you know what she's doing now that she's retired? She's gone back to doing that. And you know why people will buy from her? Because she still has great looking products. And she texts me every once in a while and says, hey, how you doing? Retirement's great. So it's pretty funny. So that's it. So I just wanted to give you guys some encouragement. Don't be afraid to risk yourself. Don't take it personally when clients reject you. If you get enough, if you do enough prospecting, if you get enough ideas in the marketplace, you're more likely to attract buyers. And you have to get yourself out there and you have to hustle. So that's it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the class today, and you can take some of the things that we talked about today and apply them into your work life and experience some success. So we're here to help you to do that. And you're more than welcome to reach out to me. My email is craig@graphicsflow.com. If you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recorded portion of the webcast.